Spotting a narcissist isn't about judging others, it's about protecting yourself. In a world where manipulation has become more sophisticated, you can't just rely on what someone says or how they appear. You have to listen to what they can't fake, their energy, micro-behaviors, and how your body reacts to them. If someone makes you feel smaller, guilty for being yourself, or forces you to shrink your boundaries to keep the peace, that's not love, that's control dressed up as charm. You don't have to wait until you're drained, confused, or lost to see it. You have the right to recognize these signs early. You have the right to step back. And above all, you have the right to live a life where you don't have to apologize for your truth. Let me know in the comments, which sign resonated with you the most? And if this video spoke to something deep inside you, don't forget to hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, because more content is coming. Content that will help you heal, grow, and come home to yourself. Strategy 1. Strategic silence when not responding becomes your sharpest weapon. One of the most instinctive reactions when you're being verbally attacked, emotionally manipulated, or misrepresented by a narcissist is the urge to speak up, to defend yourself, to set the record straight. But remember this, your reaction is their fuel. Silence, when used correctly, is not weakness. It is a highly intelligent counterattack, because when you stop arguing, when you no longer fall into their toxic provocations, you're sending a loud, clear message. I'm not playing your game anymore. Narcissists thrive on attention, whether positive or negative. They need to see you react to feel powerful. But when you stay silent, no replies to their insulting texts, no responses to their public jabs, no emotional outbursts, you cut off the fuel supply to their inflated ego. Silence terrifies them. Because to a narcissist, silence doesn't just mean you don't care. It means they've lost control. They become confused, insecure, sometimes even panicked. They'll try everything to make you react. Sweet talk, fake apologies, or, on the flip side, threats and insults. But remember, each time you remain calm and silent, you're reclaiming a piece of power they once stole from you. However, this silence is not passive suffering. It is a conscious, strategic choice with boundaries. You're not silent because you're helpless. You're silent because you've risen above the need to be understood by someone who never truly listened. This strategy is especially effective during the end phase of a relationship, or when you've entered a no-contact state. It doesn't just protect your emotional energy, it allows you to rebuild your inner foundation, where you're no longer spinning inside chaos created by someone else. Imagine you are a still, calm lake. The narcissist throws stones, but no ripples form. They can't read you, can't provoke you. And that's what drives them insane. When you say nothing, they are forced to confront the emptiness of their own ego. Silence also helps you hear your own voice more clearly. Without being trapped in verbal warfare, you gain the space to heal, to observe, to recognize toxic patterns you once mistook for normal. And most importantly, understand this. Silence is the most elegant rejection of a relationship that did not respect you. It's how you rise without shouting. It's how you say, "I deserve better," without an argument. It's how you reclaim ownership of yourself, gracefully, fiercely, and with quiet dignity. Strategy 2. Ask questions. Lead the manipulator into their own maze. Narcissists often approach conversations with sharp confidence and a false sense of superiority. They throw accusations, shift blame, or belittle others. Not to understand you, but to provoke a reaction from you. They want you to defend yourself, get emotional, or feel confused. But this is where you stop playing by their rules. Instead of explaining, defending, or retaliating, you ask questions. You flip the script and make them the one under the spotlight. In that moment, you regain control. For example, when they call you selfish, don't refute it. Look at them calmly and ask, "What makes you say that? Can you give me a specific example of that behavior?" How does it affect you when I don't do what you want? What do these questions do? They expose the flaws in their argument. They force the narcissist to take responsibility for their words. Most importantly, they disrupt their control over the conversation, something manipulators deeply despise. When you ask questions, you're no longer the prey, you become the leader. And if you're patient enough, you'll begin to see them contradict themselves, talk in circles, or get visibly frustrated. That's because their manipulation isn't grounded in truth. It's built on your emotional reactions. And now, you're not reacting. You're steering. This tactic is especially useful when you're nearing the end of a toxic relationship. If possible, try to get these manipulative interactions in writing, through messages, emails, or documented conversations. Once it's in black and white, truth becomes undeniable. You gain the upper hand, whether legally, emotionally, or socially. Beyond that, asking questions helps you stay calm and rational. When your mind is focused on gathering clarity instead of defending your worth, you begin to see the manipulation patterns more clearly. You no longer get trapped in their emotional chaos. You rise above it. But remember, don't expect honest answers. The goal isn't to make them admit the truth. The goal is to regain the upper hand. Ask to stay in control. Ask to make their tactics visible. Ask to remind yourself you have the right to challenge anyone trying to control your reality. In the end, one well-placed question can not only disrupt a narcissist's mental game, it can reconnect you to your power, the power to think, reflect, and refuse to be led by lies disguised as conversation. Strategy 3. I agree with you, but when agreement turns into a digital knife. Sword. When you start using questions as your weapon of choice, as we discussed in Strategy 2, you begin shifting the power dynamic. No longer reactive, you're now leading the game. But imagine going one step further. Not just dodging their attacks, but making them believe you're on their side, all while stripping away their manipulation. That's where Strategy 3 comes in, a razor-sharp, elegant technique that flips their mind games inside out. Begin with, I agree with you that, and then completely redirect the rest of the statement. Picture this. The narcissist accuses you of being terrible with money. Normally, that kind of attack might trigger an emotional defense, an attempt to explain, or a counter-argument. But instead, you smile gently and say, I agree with you that that's your opinion. I agree with you that we're not going to reach a conclusion on this today. I agree with you that people can have different perspectives. See what's happening here? On the surface, it sounds like you're conceding, but in reality, you're not admitting to anything at all. The phrase, I agree with you, is just a tactical lead-in, creating the illusion of compliance that completely disarms their defenses. So what happens next? The narcissist is thrown off. They heard agreement, but when they replay the conversation in their mind, they realize nothing was actually agreed upon. That cognitive dissonance destabilizes them because the reaction they were counting on, the fight, the fluster, the explanation, never comes. You've just neutralized their attack while confusing them enough to lose grip on their control. This strategy not only helps you maintain your calm, but it also prevents escalation, since you're not denying them, not opposing them. You're simply holding up a psychological mirror, letting them get lost in their own illusion. The key is to deliver this with a calm, neutral tone. No sarcasm, no anger. This isn't an emotional jab. It's a precise psychological maneuver. At the end of the day, you don't need to win arguments with force. You win by leaving them with nothing to latch onto, and your conditional agreement becomes the sharpest blade in your arsenal. After you've confused them with the I agree with you that tactic, a phrase that feels like agreement but instantly slams the door shut on their control, you've just shaken the foundation they thought was unshakable. But don't stop there, because narcissists don't give up easily. They'll shift to the next battleground, demanding that you explain yourself. They'll question you, bait you, drag you into pointless conversations just to pull you back into the toxic loop where they regain control of the narrative. And that's exactly when you deploy strategy 4. Don't explain, don't defend, don't engage, don't argue. Strategy 4. Don't explain, don't defend, don't argue. This is the core principle that helps you break free from the manipulation cycle narcissists try to trap you in. What they crave most is your reaction, especially your emotional reaction, and the fastest way to hand them that weapon is to begin explaining. Every time you say things like, "That's not what I meant," or "I was only trying to help," you're unknowingly playing right into their game, because the more you speak, the more they twist your words, distort your intent, and redirect the conversation. The solution? The DEEP method, a powerful framework popularized by Dr. Ramani Devasula, built on 4 key pillars. Don't defend, you don't need to prove your innocence, they're not seeking truth, they're seeking weaknesses. Don't explain, any explanation will be used against you, not in court, but in the courtroom of emotional manipulation. Don't engage, don't argue, don't take the bait. Every reaction fuels their game. Don't personalize, their attacks say more about them than they do about you. Instead of falling into the trap of trying to make them understand, hold your ground with powerful boundary-setting responses like, "I don't feel the need to explain myself. Being clear with myself is enough. I am not participating in this kind of conversation." Your calm, steady refusal to play their game is your sharpest weapon. You are unplugging the emotional power cord, and the more silent you are in the face of their provocations, the more they reveal who they truly are, frantic, angry, and out of control, because without an audience, their stage crumbles. When you stop explaining, stop reacting, and stop engaging in meaningless arguments, you strip the narcissist of their most powerful weapon, your emotions. But make no mistake, silence does not mean surrender. In fact, this is when you begin to reclaim your power on a different level, through truth. Because a manipulator won't stop just because you've gone silent. They might switch tactics, distort the story, flip the script, and make you out to be the one at fault. And that's exactly when you need Strategy 5. Document everything. Strategy 5. Document everything. Not emotionally, but strategically. In the narcissist's world, reality is constantly twisted to serve their need for control. So don't argue to correct the truth. Record it. Start with even the smallest details. Screenshot messages, emails, and written conversations. Keep a journal of events with dates, times, and content. Record threats, manipulative remarks, smear tactics, and if legally allowed, voice recordings, not to get revenge, but to protect yourself when they begin rewriting history or launching a smear campaign against you. Remember, once you're no longer a pawn on their chessboard, they'll likely try to cast themselves as the victim and you as the villain. But with evidence in hand, the truth stands with you. Use technology to your advantage. Save chat records securely in the cloud. Forward copies of emails to yourself for timestamps. Log their patterns of behavior with your emotional observations. Keeping this kind of documentation not only gives you a shield if things ever go legal, it also helps you avoid gaslighting yourself. When you review the clear timeline of events, you'll see you're not crazy, you were right to feel hurt, drained, and ready to break free. And most importantly, it empowers you to stand firm without ever needing to shout to be believed. Strategy 6. The mirror effect. Let them expose themselves. Once you've gone silent, stopped reacting, refused to justify yourself, and begun documenting everything, they start to unravel. But instead of calling them out directly, what if you let them expose themselves? That's the power of the mirror effect, a subtle yet powerful psychological counterattack. The mirror effect means you don't attack, criticize, or explain. You simply reflect their behavior and words back to them. You allow them to see themselves, not through fear or blame, but through truth. And that deeply unsettles them. Imagine a narcissist manipulating, twisting facts and distorting reality. Instead of arguing, you respond with calm questions like, "Why do you think that? Can you explain that more clearly? You seem very upset. What's behind that?" Or simply, "That's what you just said. Are you sure about that?" These questions don't attack, they mirror. And narcissists who live inside a crafted illusion can't bear being confronted with a reflection of their real behavior. This tactic is especially effective when they're in baiting mode, trying to provoke a reaction. But when you don't react the way they expect, and instead calmly reflect their words and actions, they begin to falter. They often reveal their own contradictions, manipulations, and instability, without you having to lift a finger. The mirror effect also causes them to talk more than they should. Manipulators like to control the narrative, but your silence or neutral questions force them to keep talking. The more they speak, the more holes they dig, until their true face becomes undeniable. For example, if they say, "You ruin everything," instead of defending yourself, you simply respond, "So you think I ruin everything?" You're not agreeing or denying, you're reflecting, and if you stay calm, they lose control. Here's the secret. You're not trying to change them, you're just holding up a mirror. This forces them to confront the truth they've been avoiding, and it triggers deep internal chaos. This strategy requires composure, patience, and emotional boundaries. But with practice, it becomes more than a tactic. It becomes a way to free yourself from the role they assigned you. You're no longer the one who pleads, defends, or explains. You become the truth reflector. And that drives them into confusion, panic, and ultimately exposure. Strategy 7. Give them more rope to hang themselves. In the previous strategy, you learned how to become a neutral mirror, not reacting, not defending, simply reflecting every word and action of the narcissist. And something powerful happens when you stop feeding the dynamic. They start seeing themselves. Cracks begin to appear in the seemingly perfect image they've projected. But don't be mistaken, that doesn't mean they'll stop. In fact, when the mask begins to slip, they often double down by doing what they do best, talking. This isn't the moment to end the interaction. This is the moment to widen the mirror, not to argue, but to let them wander deeper into the maze they've built themselves. This is where one of the sharpest psychological counter-strategies comes into play. Give them more rope to hang themselves. Narcissists can't stand silence. They crave an audience. They need to speak, to assert, to prove that they're right and you're wrong. And that thirst for validation becomes your leverage if you know how to guide it. Their compulsive need to talk becomes the very tool that exposes them. You don't have to raise your voice or lose control. Just stay calm, curious, and composed. Nod slightly, make eye contact, and present yourself as an open listener. This gives them the illusion of control, and they'll run with it. Then start asking open-ended questions. Why do you feel that way? Can you explain that in more detail? What led you to that conclusion? These questions neither agree nor disagree, they simply create space. And in that space, they will keep talking. After each answer, respond with calculated silence. 3 or 4 seconds. That silence creates discomfort, and their instinct will be to fill it. But the more they talk, the more likely they are to contradict themselves. Their narrative begins to unravel. When the timing is right, subtly shift the interaction to writing. Ask them to put their thoughts in an email, just so I don't miss anything. Suggest a group chat to summarize perspectives. Once their words are fixed in text, time-stamped, archived, their ability to rewrite or deny becomes severely limited. And you simply observe. Watch as they contradict past statements, exaggerate facts, change dates or details. This is the rope they're handing to you, freely, insistently. Resist the urge to confront them directly. Even when the contradictions are obvious, don't accuse. Just ask one more gentle question. Earlier you mentioned something different. Could you clarify that for me? Let them squirm. Let them patch the holes. The more they try to fix their story, the worse it becomes, and all you have to do is keep listening and documenting. This strategy is a double-edged sword. In your favor, first you gain objective evidence. Every word came from them. It's not your version, it's theirs. Second, you preserve your energy. No fighting, no emotional chaos. You simply ask and observe. And finally, you gain leverage. When the time comes to shine a light on the truth, you can return to the messages, the emails, the inconsistencies, and let the proof speak for itself. One vital reminder: always make sure you're collecting information legally, according to the laws in your area, and never provoke or mock them. Just ask questions, record responses, and remain calm. Your silence becomes strategy. Your curiosity becomes clarity. And your power? It lies in doing absolutely nothing, except letting them reveal exactly who they are. After you've given them enough rope to tie themselves up, after their contradictions, irrational claims, and fabricated narratives begin to surface, it's time for the final move. Not an attack, but a calm exposure of the truth that they can't twist or deny. Strategy 8. Return the facts like a cold mirror. No accusation, just clarity. Narcissists live in a reality they construct, where they're always right, always the victim, always the hero. But when you reflect their actual words and actions back to them, stripped of emotion, sarcasm, or judgment, you destabilize them. You rob them of the illusion. This isn't the time to argue. It's the time to lay down the receipts collected during Strategy 7, texts, emails, notes, and ask simple, calm questions like, "According to this message, you said the opposite earlier. I'm confused. Can you help me understand why these two statements don't match? You previously stated something different. So which one is accurate? You're not accusing, you're simply reflecting." And that reflection of the reality they can't control shakes them to their core. A manipulator isn't afraid of being disliked. They're afraid of being seen clearly. When all the smoke is gone and their words are staring back at them, time-tabbed, documented, they can no longer escape. They may rage, deflect, deny, or even play the victim one last time. But if you remain grounded, refusing to defend, argue, or emotionally react, truth becomes the loudest voice in the room. This strategy doesn't just end the psychological game. It delivers your final statement: I see you now. And I don't need to fight to win, I just need clarity, and now that I have it, the illusion is over. You don't need to scream to prove you're right. You don't need to stoop low to respond to dirty tactics. And you definitely don't need to win against a narcissist by playing their game. It's your calm, your clarity, and your strategic intelligence that truly unravels them. Because in their world, built on manipulation, control, and illusions of power, the truth, reflected back cold and emotionless, is the most terrifying force of all. The 8 strategies you've just learned aren't just tools for defense. They are a way out, a path back to your voice, your autonomy, and the inner peace you've always deserved. So, if you're caught in the quiet battle with someone who constantly tries to control, manipulate, or crush your confidence, remember this: you are not alone. You're stronger than you think, and with the right insight, awareness, and strategies, you won't just survive, you'll rise. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss upcoming videos on psychology, emotional self-defense, and healing after narcissistic abuse. Share this with someone who needs it, and remember, silence may confuse them, but knowledge will dismantle them.